Sportsnet. Presented by the all-new 2017 Ridgeline, our newest vehicle and their newest band, Honda, official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
It is Friday, and that means there's the Friday Fan Festival outside Rogers Center. It's 32 degrees here in Toronto, but the fans are having a good time. And we come inside for some baseball. The Houston Astros in town for a 3-game series. A.J. Hinch, in his second year at the helm of the Astros, saw his team lose 3 of 4 to the Blue Jays down at Minute Maid Park. Let's take a look at the starting lineup. This Astros team won a doubleheader last night against the Minnesota Twins. Top of the order, Springer and Alex Bergman. Jose Altuve, he leads the major leagues with 164 hits, and right behind him, Carlos Correa, the young shortstop, has a 7-game hit streak. The Blue Jays couldn't get these two out down in Houston. They're going to have to do a better job here at Rogers Center.
And that starts with Francisco Liriano. Makes a second start for the Blue Jays since he was acquired from the Pirates at the trade deadline. He pitched last Friday and did not factor in the decision. That was that Blue Jay 4-3 win over the Orioles. 7 hits, 2 earned runs, 5 strikeouts in 6 innings of work. They hit 2 hard hit balls, I thought, in the 6 innings.
Quickly ahead, 0-2 on George Springer. The problem for Liriano over the years has been his inability to throw strikes consistently. But he has thrown strikes to Russell Martin. He did it in Pittsburgh, and he's done it in the first game we saw him here in a Blue Jays uniform against Kansas City.
I thought he threw plenty of strikes.
Ground ball. Donaldson gets a big hop head high over the first in time. 1 away. Well, Liriano is fired up to be with this ball club. He knows they've got a good defensive team. Let's take a look at the outfield. Daryl Siciliani playing in left field. Melvin Upton Jr. is in center, and Michael Saunders is in right. Donaldson, Tulowitzki, Travis, and Smoke around the infield. They can really pick it on the infield. And behind the plate, Russell Martin teamed up with his former teammate, Francisco Liriano.
That's Michael Saunders in right field. No Jose Bautista's on the disabled list. John Gibbons was asked about Michael Saunders in right field. He says, I like the way he plays right field. I like the way he moves around out there. So I think we're going to see Saunders in right field while Jose is on the disabled list.
This is Alex Bregman, the rookie third baseman. Got up to a slow start, but his average climbing up to 156. He's 10 for 64 since coming up to the big leagues.
Good pitch. I think everybody hit yesterday in that doubleheader, split doubleheader against the Minnesota Twins for the Houston Astros.
They won game 1, an afternoon game, 15-7, and took the nightcap 10-2. Liriano's making it look easy. 2 outs here quickly in the first. Jose Altuve leads the major leagues in hits, as we told you earlier, and he's also a leading candidate for the MVP. When you look at where he ranks offensively, he is the leader in most of the important categories.
Yeah, average 365. He's been raking hits, on base percentage, total bases, steals. He's third with 26. He's had 8 4-hit games already this year. He's also got 92 hits on the road this season. He had well over 400 on the road. You throw in some great defense and some base stealing, and yeah, he might be the front runner right now.
He is a free swinger, likes to swing early in the at-bats, and he hasn't seen a high fastball he can't handle. I don't care how high it is. 365 average with 19 homers. Changeup missed up and away. It's 2-0. These are the 2 guys that Liriano's really going to have to focus on. Altuve and Correa right behind him. 3-4 in the Astros lineup.
Taking nothing away from the other hitters in their lineup, but these 2 are very special. They were the guys the Blue Jays had a lot of trouble with down in Houston last week. In fact, those were the guys who helped them win game 1 in that series. In extra innings, Altuve single, Correa doubled.
Good pitch in on the hands, ties up Altuve. It's 2-2.
They were also the guys in one of those games where they had to stop them. Danny Barnes stopped them in one of those games. Joe Biagini also stopped them in the 8th inning in back-to-back games with a very close score.
2-2 pitch. He reaches for it and pops it up in shallow right. Travis is out. Saunders calls for it. The right fielder makes the catch. Quick inning for Francisco Liriano. The Astros are retired in order. Time the Astros in order. Now it's over to the offense. Let's take a look at the lineup for John Gibbons' Blue Jays. They are in first place, a half game ahead of the Baltimore Orioles. Top of the order has been a real bright spot for the Blue Jays recently. Devin Travis has a 7-game hit streak, hitting nearly 500 over those 7 games. His season average at 305. Then down in the 5th spot, Troy Tulowitzki over his last 8 games, batting .320 with a pair of home runs and 7 RBIs. Tulowitzki played in just 1 of the 4 games against the Astros the last time they met.
Hey, we'll get Joe Musgrove, the 23-year-old rookie, making his 2nd major league start. Very impressive in his first one. That was versus Texas. He threw 5 innings, allowed a run on just 5 hits, became the first pitcher in club history to record 6 strikeouts while allowing no walks in his first career start in the major leagues. His first major league appearance was impressive also. That was against the Blue Jays, if you remember that, back on August the 2nd. Entered that game in relief and struck out 8 batters in just 4 1/3 innings.
Devin Travis gets a first pitch strike from Musgrove. Travis batting .305, 10 homers and 34 RBIs. Just off the plate.
A lot of the Houston people were singing the praises of Devin Travis today. They got their first extended look at him in that 4-game series down in Houston, and they've come away impressed with his approach at the plate, impressed with his power in that bat.
Two balls and a strike. Popped up. This is playable. Tyler White in foul territory makes the catch. 1 away. Well, Houston, they're the best defensive team in the American League, and they've got some real athletes in the outfield. Marwin Gonzalez is in left field. Teoscar Hernandez making his first big league start tonight. He was just called up. George Springer is in right. On the infield, it is Bregman, Correa, Altuve, and White from third base to first base, and the catcher is Jason Castro handling Joe Musgrove.
Teoscar Hernandez got a lot of tools. This is his big league first appearance right here in center field. He can run. He's got some tools in the outfield. His hitting has come along and just got the call today. He has taken over for Carlos Gomez, who was actually DFA'd, let go the other day. We saw Gomez down in Houston. He was let go, and they brought up one of their kids. Had a lot of tools.
0-2 to Donaldson. Outside, it's 1-2. Fly ball to left field. Marwin Gonzalez is there. 2 quick outs for Musgrove.
Let's take a look at the scouting report for the 23-year-old rookie. This is his third appearance in the big league. He's got a fastball. It's about 92. He can get it up to 94. He throws out about 60% of the time. He's got the slider, the curveball, and the changeup. He sets that grip right before he lets go to that pitch. He sets it in that changeup grip, and then he'll change it when he's in the glove. But he's been very impressive. He throws strikes. He uses his breaking ball when he's behind in the count. And John Gibbons was asked today, do you think the hitters are going to make some kind of adjustment? He said, well, this is the second time we got a chance to look at him. We had nothing on him the first time we saw him. He said my hitters do a pretty good job of putting together their own scouting reports.
Hanging breaking ball, and Musgrove got away with a mistake. You could hear Edwin. He was disappointed.
You could hear him all the way up here after he missed. He's still shaking his head. Listen to this. Yeah, that's Edwin. After missing that hanging breaking ball.
They got another one. All three of those pitches are pitches that he'll hit out of the ballpark. You can see Edwin looking for home run number 300 for his career. On the season, 31 homers, 94 RBIs, 0-2. I spoke to Musgrove after his relief appearance in his major league debut down in Houston. He's a former Blue Jay farmhand, and I congratulated him and asked him what he learned after that first appearance. He said, I had doubts as to whether or not my stuff was good enough to get these guys out. Now I believe it is.
Oh, he does have stuff that can get you out. He can throw strikes. That's the impressive part about him. He's a big guy, and he throws decent, above average fastball, but he throws a lot of strikes. He has always thrown a lot of strikes. Those kind of pitchers, tall guys with that loose arm action who throw hard and they throw strikes, you can't give up on those guys.
The Blue Jays included him as one of 7 players they traded to Houston in July of 2012 for Jay Happ, Brandon Lyons, and David Carpenter. Ball hit to right and deep. Springer looking up. This ball is off the wall. Encarnacion is headed for second, and he gets there with a stand-up double. Double number 26 for Double E. He had a lot of pitches to hit in that at-bat.
And he finally took a tough pitch down and away from him. He didn't try and pull it. He went right with it. Fastball down and away. Look where this thing is. Right on the outside corner, about knee high. And Edwin puts a charge in it to right field. I thought George Springer did a good job of catching that ball off the wall and getting it back in. He's an outstanding outfielder. Springer, with a very strong arm, holds Edwin to a double.
Well, the Blue Jays are at it again in the first inning. We've got a runner in scoring position for Michael Saunders. There are 2 outs. Inside with the breaking ball. Saunders hitting .271. He's been stuck on 19 home runs for a while. That is his career high. He also had a 19-homer season with Seattle.
Sometimes that can mess with your mind a little bit when you're trying to get that elusive 20th home run and to set a career high. I don't think that's the case here with Michael Saunders. Says he feels like his at-bats have been better. He's getting pitchers to hit. He just hasn't been hitting them.
Upstairs, 2-1.
His at-bats are good. I mean, he gets long at-bats. He sees lots of pitches. He doesn't swing at pitches off the plate. Good time to pick that run up right here. Looks like they're going to pitch him away.
Correa dives, knocks it down, and saves a run. We told you Houston had a good defensive ball club right there. The young shortstop takes a hit away from Saunders and saves a run for Joe Musgrove. He's shaded up the middle, but he's so quick and athletic. He makes a nice play to end the bottom of the first.
Friday night and Friday Fan Festival. What better place to be broadcasting from than right here in the WestJet flight deck? There is a great party going on here, and there always is. Meanwhile, down below me here in center field is Melvin Upton Jr., who's going to be playing a lot of center field with Kevin Pillar on the DL. And he told me that what he was able to do on Wednesday night, stealing 3 bases, is something that he really likes to add to a team. It's not just stealing bases, it's the threat when he is on base that he feels can mess up a pitcher's timing. He also told me, when I asked him about fitting into this new clubhouse, as soon as I mentioned the clubhouse, a big smile came on his face. He said, you know what? From day one, these guys were outstanding. This clubhouse has a lot of fun. They're a tight-knit group, and I can see why players really enjoy being part of this organization. He's really having a blast here as a member of the Blue Jays. And guys, I'm having a blast out here in center field. If you guys ever decide you want to call a game out here, I know a few people. I can set it up for you.
You got connections, eh, Barry?
Oh, I do.
Attaboy. First pitch is inside to Carlos Correa. Well, what a nice play he made in the bottom half of the first. Takes a hit away from Michael Saunders.
Takes an RBI, takes a run off the board also.
Donaldson cuts in front of Tulowitzki and kicked off his glove. That should be an error. Donaldson made the right play, but it hit off the thumb of his glove, and he couldn't field it cleanly.
You know, you don't see that very often from Josh Donaldson. He's really improved on balls going to his left, and anytime a third baseman can cut in front of that shortstop, catch the ball, it's a easier throw. And you're right off the thumb of that glove. Get over there, see his momentum is going over towards first base. That's the play. He just missed it.
That is ruled a base hit. And I would imagine Josh Donaldson would argue that point. So it's a leadoff single. Donaldson's got a chance to erase that leadoff hit, and he does. Just like that. Hit it to me. Marwin Gonzalez hits a hard shot right to Donaldson, and he makes quick work of it. A 5-4-3 double play.
Infielders love that after they kick one and they make a mistake. You want that next one hit right at you to redeem yourself. And Josh redeemed himself. I love how he stayed down on that ball and used the backhand. Looked that ball right into the glove. He knew he had plenty of time.
Yeah, because he had plenty of time, he could take his time and threw a strike to Devin Travis. 2 away. This ball is laced into center, and that's going to go to the wall off the bat of Evan Gattis. Gattis will coast into second with a stand-up 2-out double, his 15th double of the season.
Told you these Astros were really swinging the bat yesterday. They were losing their game on Wednesday 5-0 when the skies opened up and the game was rained out in the 3rd inning. So they played a split doubleheader yesterday. 25 runs, 35 hits. Gattis had 3 hits, a couple of doubles, and starts tonight off with a double.
So Tyler White, the young first baseman, batting .216 for the season. Good block by Martin on that breaking ball in the dirt. White with 7 home runs. He's one of the many rookies they have on their ball club.
They come out swinging, don't they? Especially in the first 2 innings.
For the season, they have scored more runs than any team in the American League in the first 2 innings. They've scored 77 runs in the first and 77 runs in the second.
Most in baseball. They have the most home runs in the first 2 innings in all of baseball. A.J. Hinch's team likes to get into that batter's box and swing it. They're not up there looking.
It's a different story once they get past the second. They drop to 21st in the major leagues in runs scored from the 3rd inning on. 1-2 to Tyler White. He went around. Liriano with his second strikeout of the ball game as he gets White to leave a man in scoring position. We'll go to the bottom of the second. No score. the second, and since he's come back off the disabled list, it's more like Troy Tulowitzki. You see what he did before the DL. He played in 46 games, hitting just over 200. And he wasn't driving the ball. But boy, since he's come back, Pat, he has really been the Troy Tulowitzki that we saw in Colorado.
Pulling the ball when it's inside. If it's away, he shoots it the other way. That's something that he didn't do a whole lot of when he was with Colorado. But now he's a little bit more aggressive. And I think being a little bit more familiar with the American League helps him. Look at how aggressive he is on the first pitch he sees from Joe Musgrove.
He's been a good hitter his whole career, and he's got back to looking for pitches to hit, not looking for hits. There's a strike. It's 0-2. We've just been informed that that infield hit for Carlos Correa has been changed to an error on Donaldson, and that's the right call. 0-2 pitch to Tulowitzki. Breaking ball, strike 3 call.
Super Slow-Mo Cam. Brought to you by Rogers 4K TV. Get closer to the action with 4 times the resolution of HD alone.
Another great crowd on hand here on this Friday night. Afternoon games Saturday afternoon and Sunday afternoon, and Blue Jays will head out of town. There's that good breaking ball from Musgrove. It misses to Russell Martin. Russell hit a big home run against the Astros to tie it up down in Houston in that 14-inning game. He had a home run in the 9th inning off Will Harris to tie it up at 1-1. Blue Jays was go on to lose that game in the 14th. Carlos Correa with an RBI double, but that would be the only game they would lose in that 4-game series.
Boy, he put a charge into that one. Hanging pitch over the middle of the plate.
Russell grounds out, and we thought we'd take a moment now to wish Claire Wesselman a happy birthday. It's her 76th birthday, and why it's so special, that's Josh Tolley's grandma, and she watches every game on TV. And Josh's father Mike and Donna wanted to say happy birthday to Claire, and she's a great fan. She's been to every spring training with Mike Tolley since 2005. That's pretty awesome. Happy birthday, Claire.
Happy birthday, Claire. Thanks for watching. We hear you watch every night. Thank you.
Justin Smoak takes one inside. 2 away here in the bottom of the second. Smoak with a mighty cut. Smokey hit a home run in the 7th inning on Wednesday. His 13th homer of the season. And that was a big relief. It had been quite a drought for him.
Yeah, he was very excited about that after the home run. He says, you know, I just have to slow things down, a little bit too anxious. I'm going to make a prediction here just watching him, and I've watched him now for a couple of years, day in and day out. I think he's ready to go on a nice little run right here offensively. He was out here early again today, hitting off that breaking ball machine, right-handed sliders, and he looked good. Hit a couple of balls out, but his swing looks a little bit more compact, a little bit more under control. I think he's ready to take off.
Down and in. 3-1. Melvin Upton Jr. batting in the 8th spot, waits on deck. A bit of a cut fastball there.
Well, had a little late movement on it, didn't it? Right in on the hands. That's where you want to throw that cutter in that situation. 3-1. You throw something that gets off the barrel of the bat.
Inside, ball 4. 2-out walk issued to Smoak. First walk of the game for Musgrove, and that'll bring Melvin Upton Jr. to the plate. Barry Davis mentioned his 3 steals in the ball game. That matched his career high. Second time he's had 3 steals in a game, and he's the 16th different Blue Jay to swipe 3 bases in a single game. off the end of the bat. For the season, Upton has 23 stolen bases. It's a dimension that he brings to the ball club. They don't have a lot of speed on this team, especially now with Kevin Pillar on the disabled list. He was one of their base stealing threats.
Plays exceptional defense in the outfield. He's got some speed, like you said, when he gets on base. I was talking to him around the batting cage today, and he was saying how he really likes this team. He really likes the guys on the team. He has fit right in. He's going to get a chance to play now with KP on the disabled list with that thumb injury. So I would just go out there and just do something every day to help your team.
Breaking ball in the dirt. The one thing that everybody in this lineup has to realize is you're not going to make up for Jose Bautista's absence, and you're not going to make up for Kevin Pillar. Just do what you do. Get on base, have some good at bats. You know, Josh Donaldson doesn't have to be hit better than Josh Donaldson. Edwin doesn't have to hit better than Edwin. Just be yourself. I think there's a tendency to say, okay, we got to make up for no Bautista and no Pillar.
No.
You do that, you get in trouble.
Yeah. Just be Josh Donaldson. Detroit Tulowitzki. Do your thing day in and day out. And the guys taking Jose and Kevin's place, they'll do their thing.
Fly ball to right, not that deep. Springer coming in a few steps. He'll make the catch, and the Blue Jays will leave a base runner. We'll go to the third. No score. Only 2 hits in the ball game.
Center, but always a nice night to be sitting in those big comfy green chairs in the TD Comfort Zone. And tonight we welcome guests of TD. And fans, how would you like to be able to watch a game with a guest here in the WestJet flight deck? If you do, here's how you do it. Just look for the WestJet Fan Wagon in Toronto. If you want to know how you find it, you hashtag WestJet Fan Wagon. Follow that on Twitter. You'll get all the ideas on how to find it. And I tell you what, as I mentioned before, guys, this is a great place to be. I might just stay here for the rest of the game.
It is a happening place, that's for sure. A lot of young fans out there having a good time, and people can come and go into the WestJet flight deck. Teoscar Hernandez making his first big league appearance, just called up from the minor leagues. He was not with the team in spring training. In fact, if you had been scouring the roster for the Astros in the offseason, you could have picked him up in the Rule 5 draft. He was not protected.
And the Astros were sweating it too. They thought for sure, leaving him exposed to every other major league club, that someone was going to pick him up just on his tools, his speed and his quickness.
He's 23 years old. He's from the Dominican Republic. He started at AA this year, made it up to AAA. Jason Castro, the catcher, is on deck, and there's a leadoff walk issued by Liriano. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. He's got an update for us. Patrick Corbin and David Price, the pitchers in that ball game. Jason Castro takes a first pitch strike from Liriano. Off the plate outside. Hernandez at first base can run a bit. He had 34 stolen bases in his 2 stops in the minors this season. So the Blue Jays want to keep a close eye on him.
Maybe throw over there here. There you go. Just checking in on him.
The Astros have 83 stolen bases. That's second in the American League. So they will run, especially with the number 9 hitter. Two and one. George Springer is on deck. No score in this ball game. Springer bounced out to third base his first time up. Blue Jays have already turned 1 double play in support of Liriano. Fly ball into center. Upton coming in. He'll get there and makes the catch. 1 away.
Home Hardware and Building Center locations. Proud partners of the Toronto Blue Jays. Homeowners helping homeowners with expert advice.
Summer has certainly arrived in Toronto. A hot, muggy day, and everybody is talking about this is baseball weather, man. If you can't get loose in this weather, you're not going to get loose. Here is the leadoff man, George Springer.
Some of these people in this booth were talking about shoveling snow today. It was so hot. I'm like, really?
Well, I don't shovel snow. I live in Florida.
Yeah, I don't shovel snow.
No, you don't shovel snow. Only one other guy here. The king of all stats, Scott Carson.
This is what it's all about right here. This is baseball weather.
Liriano checking in again on Hernandez.
Well, you got to run, I think. You got your speedy guy over there at first base after a leadoff walk. You don't want him just nailed to that base. You want to get him moving. See if he can cause some confusion on that infield.
Two and 0 to Springer, and we talk about the speed of the Astros with Hernandez at first. You see where they stand in the American League. The Indians have 1 more stolen base than Houston, and the Twins, the Blue Jays, are 13th. Never been a big part of this particular team's offense. Liriano all of a sudden having trouble finding the strike zone.
Yeah, they've got 83 stolen bases. They've also been thrown out 31 times. So they will run, and they will use that as part of what they do offensively.
There's a strike. Veteran umpire behind the plate, Jeff Nelson, as the umpire calls first strike in this at bat. 3-1 now. Russell Martin sure has to have his eye on Hernandez in this situation.
And those threats to steal, guys over there could buy a fastball.
Big swing and a miss. Blue Jays have really shut down Springer so far this season. He's just 2 for 16 against the Jays. Three and 2, 1 out. There goes the runner inside, ball 4. 2 on, 1 out. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. Alex Rodriguez scheduled to play his final game with the Yankees tonight. Line drive up the middle. Hernandez had to make sure that ball wasn't caught. And he can only go to third. Alex Bregman jumps on the first pitch. Figuring that Liriano was anxious to throw a first pitch strike after issuing a couple of walks.
And he was right. He was right. He guessed right. That didn't turn out too good for the Blue Jays. That line drive out of the reach of Devon Travis. You see he was holding on the runner, jockeying behind the runner at second base, was actually moving away. Watch him at second start to move away, and right where he was displaced, that's where the ball ended up. Hit too hard. The runner has to hold up on that line drive. So bases loaded, just one out, and the best hitter in the American League comes to the plate.
Jose Altuve flew out to right field his first time up. Line drive caught by Donaldson. He goes to first, and oh, what a play. How about the instincts of Josh Donaldson, knowing that Bregman would probably be the furthest away from his base. Terrific play by Josh.
Making it rain defensively for the Blue Jays tonight. He had a couple of options there. The runner at third base, watch him. He moves on that line drive. And he's closer to third base to get him, but you're right. The youngster over at first base, if he could have got something on it, maybe he can go across the diamond, but he saves 2, maybe 3 runs with that play right there, as the runner at first base has to dive back.
Carlos Correa reached on an air his first time up, and Liriano misses with the first pitch. Originally scored as an infield hit, correctly changed to an error on Donaldson. That was in the second. Foul just wide of first.
You know, it makes this guy so tough hitting at the plate. He can hit the ball where it's pitched. There's not a lot of holes in his swing. He hit a home run yesterday over the batter's eye in Minnesota. And you and I have been there a couple of times. That is a long way away in dead center field. He went over that thing.
He's got 28 doubles, 3 triples, and 18 home runs. He's driven in 78 runs. This is his first full season. And he loses that bat. Goes over against the screen in front of the Blue Jays dugout.
Asking for some stickum now at that ball. You know, it's so hot, your hands get soaking wet on nights like tonight. You see his glove, he's feeling it. That thing is wet. I'm sure that little pad is a little wet, and this is what's happening when your hands are that wet.
What happens too is your hands will sweat, your batting gloves will get wet, and players will go through 2 or 3 sets of batting gloves in the course of a game like this. So he is all set once again. He's behind a ball and 2 strikes. The bases are loaded for Houston. A couple of walks and a base hit. Martin and Liriano are going to talk this one over. They have been down this road before many times. They were teammates in Pittsburgh for 2 years.
Both veterans, and Liriano, it looks like he has a plan. He was the one who called out Russell, and he did all the talking. Right there, big pitch, 1-2.
Up the middle, Travis can't make the play. Hernandez is in. Right behind him is Castro, and check that. Springer scores behind Hernandez. A 2-run single with 2 outs for Carlos Correa.
Tried to slip a fastball by him. Moved to the inner part of the plate to Russell Martin. They wanted to get the ball in just a little bit more on Correa. He missed his spot with the fastball. It stayed out over the plate. Still, Devon Travis playing him up the middle. Almost comes up with this one. couldn't knock it down, couldn't make the play, and the first 2 runs of the ball game score here in the 3rd inning.
Marwin Gonzalez grounded into a double play back in the 2nd. Hit a ground ball right to Donaldson at 3rd. 2-0 Houston. Both of the walks issued by Liriano have come in to score here in the 3rd.
Well, there's some problems now with the runner at second base. I think they want to talk about that one. What the signs that they're going to use, they might have switched them up.
Downstairs, 3-1. Marwin Gonzalez, the left fielder. Evan Gattis doubled his only time up. He waits on deck. There are 2 outs. Bregman at 2nd. Correa at 1st. Fly ball into center. Upton is there, and he makes the catch. But the Astros break out on top. Their young shortstop, Carlos Correa, extends his hit streak to 8 straight games. This 2-run single gives him 12 RBIs over those 8 games. The 23-year-old Joe Musgrove was drafted originally by the Blue Jays. And when you look at how well they did in the draft, there's some pretty impressive arms that the Blue Jays have drafted.
Yeah, these are just 4 of the guys that we're going to show you. Sanchez, Stroman, Syndergaard was 2010. He was a high draft pick. Joe Musgrove was also a very high draft pick. 46th overall by the Blue Jays that year. Got to give a lot of props to the scouting department and the player development department for the Blue Jays. Beginning part of this decade, they drafted well and they brought some talent to the big leagues.
Here's Siciliani, rips it off the wall in right. Springer plays it perfectly. Siciliani with a head-first slide. His first hit as a Blue Jay is a double off the wall.
That's 2 hard-hit balls by the Blue Jays to right field, both of them off the wall. Siciliani comes so close to driving this ball out of the ballpark. He's been swinging a hot bat down in the minor leagues. He incorporated that leg kick you see, and it's helped his timing. It's helped with some power. See, there's the leg kick, and he gets everything behind his swing. Hits it halfway up the wall for extra bases.
A leadoff double by Siciliani. He had 14 doubles in Buffalo and 9 home runs. Devin Travis shoots it into right. Siciliani will stop at third. Devin Travis extends his hit streak to 8 straight.
Boy, he's got guys in scoring position. He's ready to swing that bat when he comes to the plate. Not much Siciliani could do right there. Runner at second base. First pitch swing and looked like another breaking ball. Look at Devin Travis. Look at his head. Right down on that baseball. Shoots it to right field. And the Blue Jays are in business.
Travis now 16 for 33 in the 8-game hit streak. Siciliani had to hold to make sure that ball was safely into right. He advances just over to third. So the table is set for Josh Donaldson. Josh lined out to left field his first time up.
How about that eye? 1-0, fastball down and in, and he just lets it go.
Coming into this game, Donaldson batting .335 for his career against the Astros. He's also hit 9 home runs against Houston. Ground ball. Correa comes after it quickly to Altuve, and that's a double play, but Siciliani comes in to score. No RBI for Donaldson, but the Blue Jays are on the board.
He's going to have to make a note of that. Josh is 2-0 breaking ball from Musgrove with runners on base. So the next time he faces him, he might sit on that pitch.
So it's a 2-1 ball game. Edwin Encarnacion doubled at the base of the wall in right center. Ground ball. Nice hop for Bregman at third. Across the diamond in time, but the Blue Jays get on the board. Just 7 pitches for Musgrove in the bottom of the third. 2-1 Houston, and here comes the ultimate cleanup crew, brought to you by Home Hardware's exclusive line of the ultimate hard hitting and tough on grime cleaning products.
We've been celebrating the Blue Jays' 40th season, and this Sunday we want you to arrive very early for the ball game because we're going to be celebrating the franchise's great pitchers throughout the 40 seasons. The ceremony begins at 12:45, so please arrive early. And there's going to be bobbleheads too with Steve Halliday and Henkin on them. Guys, there's going to be a load of great pitchers here.
It'll be a great ceremony. It'll be the final of the 3 ceremonies this season honoring 40 years of Blue Jays baseball, and the pitchers will be honored on Sunday in a pregame ceremony. Evan Gattis takes the strike on the inside corner. It's 1-1.
That should be a lot of fun on Sunday.
Yeah, there's quite a list of pitchers that are coming in. Juan Guzman, Mike Timlin, Dwayne Ward, Tom Henke, Pat Henkin, Dave Steve, Roy Halladay. Pretty impressive lists, and there'll be some video tributes that I'm not going to tell you about. Pretty impressive people. So it'll be a good little Sunday wrap up to the homestand. The Blue Jays will head out to New York after that game. There's Dave Steve. In my mind, the best pitcher that ever wore a Blue Jays uniform. He had it all. Great athlete. He was competitive as hell, and he could really pitch.
Their best and first superstar.
This ball is going to go to the wall in left center. Upton plays it off the wall. Gattis with his second consecutive stand-up double.
Well, he's looking pretty comfortable at the plate. First double went to right center field. Time he jumped all over an inside pitch from Liriano. Took a little something off. Again, he misses his spot on the inside part of the plate. He has not been able to get that ball into the right-handers yet tonight. And it has cost him a couple of hard-hit balls.
Evan Gattis is the only Astros hitter in the lineup to have previous at-bats against Francisco Liriano. He was 2 for 3 coming, or 1 for 3 coming into this game. Now he is 2 for 2 tonight. Tyler White struck out. 1 of 2 strikeouts for Liriano.
3 straight innings that they've gotten the leadoff runner on base. Need a shutdown inning after the Blue Jays scored.
Continues to miss that inside corner. There he finds it for a strike. It's 1-2 now.
Yeah, that's a good pitch. I'll tell you why. If you can throw that fastball in there to the right-handers like that, then when you throw a slider in there, they're going to think fastball and they're going to swing over the top of it. Then you start getting those right-handers thinking about the inside part of the plate. You can go away.
There it is. Hear that changeup away. White strikes out. Martin throws to first to finish off the strikeout. White has gone down twice swinging.
That whole thing was set up on that inside fastball that he was able to get in there for a strike. That's the changeup. Watch this one fade down and away. Looks like a fastball. Tyler White's got fastball on his mind because they've thrown a couple of pitches inside. And those are the kind of swings you end up getting when you execute.
This is the young center fielder, Teoscar Hernandez. He walked to start the third, came around to score the first run of the ball game. This is his first big league game. Tell you what, the Astros are not afraid to promote some of the young players.
9 rookies? They have 9 rookies on their roster right now.
Russell Martin asked for time, indicated by Jeff Nelson, the home plate umpire, as Liriano was ready to start his delivery.
What other team can make the playoffs one year and then have 9 rookies on the roster the next year?
Well, they are tied with Oakland for the most rookies on their active 25-man roster. And, of course, they got a young leader in A.J. Hinch in his second season here with Houston. He managed the Diamondbacks earlier in his career, but they also have a young superstar second baseman that's not too far removed from his rookie days. This is hit into center. Upton cruises over in to the alley and makes the catch.
We've been there from the start. Honda, official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays, proud fan since 1977.
Carlos Correa delivered a 2-out, 2-run single in the third, and this is his first full season. And there you see his double play partner, Jose Altuve, who is the best hitter in the game right now. He's got more hits than anybody in baseball, batting .365 at the start of play, and that one got Jason Castro right on the top of his foot. Boy, we see a lot of this. David Ortiz did it the other day, fouled the ball off his shin.
He had to leave the ball game and then came back. When you start to swing at those inside pitches that are off the plate, that's what happens. Jason looks like he's got that shin guard on there, but from that reaction, he didn't hit the shin guard. Nope.
Right off the kneecap. Man, that hurts. We have seen players in the past suffer fractures on those foul tips.
Mark Teixeira, right?
Mark Teixeira, Jermaine Dye, Matt Williams, Dustin Pedroia. They've all suffered fractures of either their leg or kneecap. Top of the foot. Remember, Pedroia did a couple years ago in interleague play against the Giants, and he missed the rest of the season. But it looks really harmless. That you say, well, it's a foul ball. Why take a 95-mile-an-hour fastball and hit it right into your leg? It's going to hurt.
That one got, it looked like on that replay, and the sound sounded like it got the bone. You know, Buck, I think we shortchanged the Houston Astros since they brought up
Hernandez.
Teoscar Hernandez. That's 10 rookies that they have now on their roster. They have had good young players over the last couple of years come up through their farm system, and they are, like you said, not afraid to use it.
They were so bad for so long, they had a lot of high draft picks. Springer being one of those. Correa another. 0-1, 2 outs. 2-1 ball game. Houston scored 2 in the top of the third. The Blue Jays answered with one of their own in the bottom half. Jam. Donaldson will take his time and throw to first to end the inning. Liriano does a nice job giving up the leadoff double and stranding him in scoring position.
Sportsnet app lets you stay up to date with the latest scores, breaking news, game highlights, and analysis from Canada's team. You can even stream the Blue Jays live on the go. Download the free Sportsnet app today. Now back to Buck and Pat.
Thank you very much, Barry Davis. The Houston Astros are here for their only trip this season, and you can see they're enamored with the CN Tower looking up to those people on the edge walk. Not a big deal, Pat. You and I both on that. It's really not that big a deal. I think some of the Astros should do it after the game tomorrow.
Maybe that's what they're talking about.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And I tell you what, as hot as it is down here, you get way up there, it's a lot cooler.
Did you see how breezy it was on those people who were up there?
Yeah.
Nice and breezy. Look at their clothes.
So if you want to cool off, just go up to CN Tower, walk around the edge for half an hour. It's a great experience, and a lot of the ball players that come in here, they always marvel at the people up there on the edge line. Bottom of the 4th inning. It's a 2-1 ball game. These two ball clubs are familiar with low-scoring games. They had a bunch of low-scoring games the last time they met in Houston. The Astros won the opener on Monday night 2-1 in 14 innings. Then the Blue Jays come back the next night, win 2-1. Third game they won 3-1. The fourth game they won 4-1. Not many runs in that 4-game series.
10 runs for the Blue Jays, and they took 3 out of 4. That was it, and a ton of strikeouts by both of the teams.
Pitching. Blue Jays have 51 wins from their starters this season. That's the 3rd most in baseball and the 1st most in the American League. And every year, Pat, you and I look at all the postseason qualifiers, teams that get into the playoffs. They're always near the top in wins by their starters. Jay Happ with 16 wins, the first pitcher to win 16 games this season. High fly ball deep to left field. Looking up, Michael Saunders, number
20. Enjoy that trip around the bases, Michael. A milestone home run for Saunders. Number 20, that's a new career high for Michael Saunders.
Congratulations, Michael. You have 19 with the Mariners early in his career, and now he can take a deep breath. He finally got off the schneid. He was stuck on 19 for a while.
It was a 20 home run season kind of hitter. Boy, that looked like it was just a fly ball the other way, but it just kept going and going. Another fastball right down Broadway. Hits it, it just kept going and going, and another home run for Michael Saunders the other way.
Wow, and that's when he's really swinging it the best, when he goes the other way, and this ball just kept carrying, and Hernandez watches it sail over the wall. Home run number 20 for Michael Saunders. Tulowitzki bounces it back to the mound. Musgrove throws to first for the out, 1 down. 2-2 ball game just like that. The Blue Jays, of course, with that home run power, have the ability to tie a game up no matter where they are in the score.
Just so they're not starting another streak of solo home runs. We finally got that thing off our backs the other game. When Tulo hit that 3-run home run, 17 solo homers in a row by the Blue Jays.
Russell Martin grounded out to third, his only impact. For Saunders, his first home run since July 25th. It's right here against the San Diego Padres. Martin swings at the breaking ball and strikes out.
Three straight breaking balls from Joe Musgrove. He's got that in his arsenal. Snaps that one off. Picks up just his 2nd strikeout of the night. He's a hard-throwing guy who throws a lot of strikes. He'll have his share of strikeouts, but he's got very good control.
Justin Smoke walked his first time up. Takes ball 1. The Astros shift more than any team in baseball, and they're using that shift against Smoke. Coming into this game, they've used 1,565 shifts. They've got 3 defenders on the first base side of second. Jay Hinch believes that if hitter has established a pattern, you might as well guard against it, and Smoke shoots this one into right. Up against the wall, Springer's got a strong arm. Here's the throw, in time he got him. George Springer picks up his 12th outfield assist, and he threw a one-hop strike to second base to nail Justin Smoke. Smoke hit it hard right to the wall, and Springer plays it perfectly. Blue Jays getting on Musgrove a bit, starting to get some hard contact. Springer plays it off the wall, turns and fires a one-hop strike to Correa, who tags out Smoke. Now time for a Blue Jays Central update. Here's Jamie Campbell and Greg Zahn in the Samsung broadcast studio.
Premium, the #1 live streaming sports service, delivers everything you've come to expect and more. Watch every out-of-market game live in true HD on over 400 supported devices. Includes a free subscription to @That Premium, the #1 app for live baseball. Blackout and other restrictions apply. Visit MLB.tv for details. We now head to the 5th inning. Here's Buck and Pat.
Thank you, Barry. Francisco Liriano to tie game 2-2. George Springer made a terrific throw to nail Smoke at second. And he shoots this into right for a base hit. Well, the Astros, they've gotten their leadoff man on in all but the first inning.
Yeah, put him right into that stretch position. There was an error in the second inning, a leadoff walk in the third, a double, and now a single here in the 5th. And Liriano's got to go right back to the stretch.
Liriano beat the Astros June 22nd, 2006. And he's looking to beat them here tonight. And if he does, that's going to be an historic gap between wins. If Liriano wins tonight, it'll be 10 years and 51 days between wins against the Astros. Jamie Moyer has the all-time record between wins against the Astros. 13 years, 302 days. You got to pitch a long time to set a record like that. There's a fly ball into left field, and Upton's not going to get it. It's right at the base of the wall. Boy, he played it really well, and Springer is going to end up at third. Upton played the Karen perfectly. He turned and barehanded it, caught it, and fired it back to the infield. But the Astros are on Liriano once again here in the 5th.
And Springer, the runner at first base, had to hold up momentarily. I wasn't sure that Upton was going to catch it or not, but watch Melvin. Short hops the wall, catches it with his bare hand, fires, and that makes Springer have to go diving into third base. Watch him at first. Long fly ball into the gap in left center field. He's not real sure if he's going to catch it, and recognizes it's going to drop safely. Look how he's got to hustle in the dive at the third base.
Nobody out, runners at second and third, and Jose Altuve is already 0 for 2. First pitch strike. Fair ball just inside the bag. That's going to score 2. Springer's in. Right behind him is Bregman, and Altuve continues to be a great hitter. He delivers a clutch 2-run single just inside the bag at third. 3 hits to start the top of the 5th.
One of 5 second basemen since 1901 to lead the league in hits in back-to-back seasons, and he's doing it again this year. How about that back control and being able to hit a pretty good pitch from Liriano? Keeps it fair down the left field line. That is 93 hits on the road this year, by far the most in the major leagues.
2 RBIs. He now has 73 for the season. It's 4-2. Houston. Carlos Correa. We mentioned Altuve and Correa. Those are the guys you have to get out if you're going to beat Houston, and so far they've driven in all 4 runs.
And you'd love to face them 2 outs, nobody on, but that's been the problem tonight. The 2 guys ahead of them have been on base 4 times.
Blue Jays bullpen starting to work. That's Ryan Tepera, just back from AAA Buffalo, his 6th stint with the Blue Jays. He had a good inning on Wednesday. Retired to side in order. Struck out a pair.
They don't go up there taking many pitches. This is an aggressive hitting team.
Well, and you mentioned they're coming off a doubleheader sweep in Minnesota, a split doubleheader. They scored 25 runs in the 2 games as they beat the Twins.
35 hits in 2 games.
Correa covers that outside pitch and fouls it out of play. A.J. Hinch Ball Club has slipped into 3rd place in the AL West. Texas, Seattle, then the Houston Astros. Of course, there's a lot of baseball to be played, and the second wild card situation really makes it interesting. Seattle's won 6 in a row in 8 of their last 10. They're 6.5 behind Texas. Houston is 7.5 back in the West.
Yeah, dogfight all the way to the end. This thing isn't going to be settled for a long time. If you're the Blue Jays or if you're the Houston Astros, you just come to the ballpark every day trying to win a game. Don't worry about standings or stats, where you are, none of that.
Correa lines it into right. Saunders got a nice read on contact and makes the catch. First out of the inning. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. Rodriguez batting 3rd, serving as the DH tonight. He drives in that run, and going to be his last night.
And the bleacher creatures, you know them at Yankee Stadium, where they go around the infield calling everybody's name.
There goes Altuve, and Martin threw him out. Russell Martin has had a tough season throwing out base runners, but right there he threw a strike to 3rd to nail Altuve for just the 6th time this season.
26 for 32 now, and it has to be a strike because Altuve goes straight into the bag. And he is called out. Watch where this ball has to be, right above the bag. And Josh puts that knee down. Looks like the Astros are going to take a look at the replay.
They're still looking at the replay in their dugout. A.J. Hinch is waiting on Trey Hillman, who communicates with the video room, and they wave it off. Said, let's go. So Altuve caught for just the 6th time this season.
I don't have a problem with that. That's a good aggressive move, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
You've got the lead. You're standing out at second base. If you end up stealing third, you're there with less than 2 outs. Infield has to come in. The batter might get a better pitch to hit. All he has to do is hit a fly ball.
Well, the Astros have 139 home runs, but they certainly can't stand toe-to-toe and slug with the Blue Jays. So if you can pick up an extra 90 feet, put pressure on the defense, make a play. Bouncing ball. Donaldson gets a waist-high hop. Goes Gonzalez up. But Jose Altuve comes up with a big 2-run double. Houston has a 4-2 lead as we head to the bottom of the 5th.
Largest and only official team shop for your Toronto Blue Jays. Now you can get those authentic 40th season sleeve patches available on the new jerseys. You can get yours today at jshop.ca. And I gotta love those bat flip shirts they're selling there. And you know who's in that picture on that bat flip, guys?
Barry.
Yeah, yours truly.
Yeah, I figured you'd be talking about yourself.
Yeah. Me.
You gonna buy me one?
Come on.
They don't have extra small. Nobody out. Justin. Melvin Upton Jr. Foul tips it off the catcher's glove. Joe Musgrove, we mentioned he was a Blue Jay farmhand. He was a 46 pick overall in 2011 by the Blue Jays. He pitched in just 10 games as a Blue Jay farmhand. Started out in the Gulf Coast League and stayed there the start of both of his seasons. He was traded on July 20th, 2012, part of a 7-player package that the Blue Jays sent to Houston for David Carpenter, Jay Happ, and Brandon Lyons. Upton takes it down the right side. That slices foul. It's interesting, and I spoke to the architect of that trade, Jeff Luhnow, the GM of the Houston Astros, and asked him about the genesis of the trade. How you could include Joe Musgrove in a trade after he just pitched so few games in the minors. He said, I scouted Musgrove as an amateur in California in high school, and I liked him and I wanted to draft him, but I didn't have a draft slot where I could pick him, so I kept my eye on him, and then when this trade came about, I wanted to include him in the deal, and he did. Upton strikes out. 3 strikeouts for Musgrove.
I bet you that happens a lot in baseball. GMs get good scouting reports from young amateurs. They don't get a chance to draft them, and when the opportunity arises for them to get them in a trade, they remember them.
They traded initially was for Wandy Rodriguez. He was the guy the Blue Jays were going to acquire in that trade, but Rodriguez didn't pass the physical by Blue Jays standards, so they shifted gears and got Jay Happ. But the Astros at the time needed players. They didn't have many players in their minor leagues. Now Siciliani hits it high into center field. Hernandez coming in now, gets there and makes the catch. 2 quick outs here in the bottom of the 5th for Musgrove.
Blue Jays traded 7 players to Houston.
7 players, including 2 #1 pitchers, Asher Wojciechowski and Joe Musgrove. They also included a left-handed relief pitcher, Kevin Comer, who's really not come along. He's right-handed. The left-hander was David Rollins, who has pitched with Seattle this year. But Comer is still in Double-A. And, oh, by the way, there was a catcher included in that deal, too, Carlos Perez, who's now with the Angels. Interesting deal.
Blue Jays also traded Francisco Cordero in that trade, and Ben Francisco.
July 20th, 2012. Evan Travis hits it in the air to shallow right. Springer coming in, still coming in, gets there, and Joe Musgrove, after his team scored 2 in the top half, needs just 9 pitches to retire the side in order. Action tomorrow. It's on Sportsnet 360. The Arizona Diamondbacks are in Boston to take on the Red Sox. It all starts at 7 Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Archie Bradley goes to the mound for the Diamondbacks. He'll be opposed by Clay Buchholz, so make sure you check it out tomorrow. More baseball from Fenway. It all starts tomorrow at 7 Eastern on Sportsnet 360. Evan Gattis, foul ball. Corey Blazer down at third, emphatically calling that ball foul.
If it was foul, it wasn't foul by much. Gattis already has a couple of doubles tonight. Josh was ready to throw him out. First pitch swinging again on that changeup, and watch the umpire emphatically says no.
There's a strike. It's 0-2. Gattis has doubled to the right of center field, then he doubled to the left of center field. Pair of doubles for Gattis. He now has 16 doubles for the season, along with those 18 homers. Changeup for a ball 1-2. Houston with a 4-2 lead. With Pio down to Doug Eddings, he said no swing. Gattis held up on the changeup. 2-2 now.
Gotta get that ball inside. You gotta figure they're going to go back in there.
Ground ball to Lewitzki in the hole. Plenty of time. One away.
A lot of things have changed, but one thing hasn't. Honda, official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays, proud fan since 1977.
Beautiful shot of CN Tower and the skyline of Toronto as the sun is setting and it's cooling off a bit here. Tyler White has struck out twice tonight. Mariano has 3 strikeouts. Blue Jays will want to put up a 0 here in the top of the 6th and see if they can't get something going against Musgrove, because the Astros bullpen is pretty tough.
We saw that firsthand, didn't we? Down in Houston.
They got one of their big arms on the shelf for a few days. Ken Giles has been placed on the paternity list, so he is not with the ball club. Luke Gregerson has been activated. They got some big arms down there.
Yes, they do. And that guy knows how to use them.
A.J. Hinch was a catcher in his playing days, played his college baseball at Stanford. Foul tip held on to by Russell Martin. Well, the Blue Jays come into this game with a 65-50 record, 15 games over 500. And when you look at the leaders of the pack in the American League since May 1st, the Blue Jays are right there on top. Cleveland has 54 wins. Same for the Rangers. But the Blue Jays have fewer losses than those other 2 teams. Houston 53-38, and the Orioles 50-41. Baltimore is on a long West Coast swing. They'll play the Giants tonight later on.
You know, you look at since that time what the ERA is, the ERA leaders in the American League, and you noticed all those teams with the best records. Well, they're also 1, 2, 3 in ERA since that time. Team ERA. Toronto, Houston, Cleveland, all pitching.
Baltimore will send Dylan Bundy to the mound tonight against Matt Cain, and tomorrow Kevin Gausman and Madison Bumgarner. And Johnny Cueto will go to the mound for San Francisco in the series finale against the Orioles on Sunday. Well, they got their hands full. Baltimore's not scoring many runs right now either.
Oakland pitched them tough in that 4-game series. That would be really tough. And now they get San Francisco, Madison Bumgarner. At least they get to stay in their own hotel for a week. Same hotel.
Teoscar Hernandez swings and misses. It's now a full count. You saw Jason Castro, the catcher, waiting on deck. Fly ball deep to left field. Hernandez has just hit his first big league home run. Teoscar Hernandez had 4 home runs in AAA. This is his first major league game, and he's got a big league homer. His first big league hit goes out of the ballpark.
First big league hit is a home run on a 3-2 breaking ball. Told you they were sweating it out this winter when he was available in that Rule 5 draft, and nobody picked him. And right now the Houston Astros are happy nobody did. Told you he's got some tools, and here they are on display. Slider down and in, and Hernandez has his first big league hit, his first big league home run, and hugs from everybody. That's got to feel good.
23-year-old Teoscar Hernandez in his first big league game. His 3rd major league plate appearance, gets his first hit and home run. 5-2 Houston. Castro gets hit by a pitch. Ryan Tepera is throwing for a second time tonight, and John Gibbons wants Russell Martin to go out to the mound and give Tepera a little more time.
Yeah, so they can call down there just to see if he is going to be done.
Francisco Liriano, you see his ERA by seasons going back to 2014, respectable both of those years, 14 and 15, and it jumps this season, and he's had trouble with his command and control. He led the National League in walks, and that's going to be it for him tonight as John Gibbons, the manager, has made the call to the bullpen. Hernandez hits a 2-out home run. Castro gets hit by a pitch. George Springer is the scheduled batter, so instead of allowing Springer to face Liriano for a 4th time, it'll be Ryan Tepera into the ball game. So Tepera's in. The Astros have a 5-2 lead, 2 outs. We're in the 6th. Season of Blue Jays baseball, and you can see some Blue Jay legends right there. Pat Henkin on the left, Dave Steve in the center, and the Hall of Famer Robbie Alomar. Henkin and Steve will be part of a ceremony prior to Sunday's game. 40 seasons of Blue Jays baseball started in 1977. Of course, Henkin, Steve, and Alomar had a lot to do with the success of the Blue Jays over the years. Francisco Liriano out of the ball game after 5 2/3. Ryan Tepera has not faced the Astros this season. This is his 7th game. As we mentioned, he pitched a clean inning on Wednesday night.
Up and down 6 times from the minor leagues. He looked very sharp in that outing the other day when he threw that clean inning. Very sharp. He struck out the first batter, got a weak grounder and a little pop-up. Had a good fastball. He can cut his fastball also.
Springer with a mighty cut. Springer is 1 for 2 with the walk. He scored a pair of runs. Ryan Tepera, now 28 years old. He spent his entire career in the Blue Jays organization. It started in 2009. Alex Bregman, the young third baseman, is on deck. 3-1 to Springer. Ball 4. Tepera walks the first man he faces here in the 6th.
Blue Jays did a good job of keeping that guy off the bases down in Houston. Springer's been on 3 times tonight. Tepera was a starter down in the minor leagues, and then they moved him into the bullpen a couple of years ago. I think he fits much better in the bullpen. Can throw hard for an inning or 2.
Alex Bregman has a couple of hits. He's 2 for 3. He singled in the 3rd, doubled and scored in the 5th. The Astros have confidence that Bregman can hit. He's hit in his short stay in the minor leagues with them.
How about that? They brought him right up and put him in the number 2 spot in their batting order. Showing a lot of confidence in the kid. He was just drafted last year. And he had a rough series down in Houston against the Blue Jays.
Ground ball. Donaldson will go across the diamond in time. Tepera gets out of the inning. Well, Blue Jays are down by 3. They've got the right men coming up when we come back. Josh Donaldson will start it off, followed by Edwin Encarnacion and Michael Saunders. A career-high 20th home run in his last at-bat.
Staff meeting. Tell them to bring it to the ballpark. Yeah, you can join the big leagues by getting an Accurate luxury suite. You can have a business meeting and take in a ball game. The account executives will find the package that best suits your needs. Go to BlueJays.com/luxury suites for more. And guys, some news just came out of the West Coast that the Baltimore Orioles have sent Darren O'Day back to Baltimore to have his shoulder looked at by the team doctor. That's not good news for the Orioles at all.
No, it's not. And Darren O'Day's been plagued with injuries. He had a hamstring problem for most of the season this year, and you wonder if that leg didn't lead to the shoulder problems, but
usually does, doesn't it?
Not good news for the Orioles. Key part of their bullpen. Time for the Blue Jays to get something going against Joe Musgrove. He's held them to 2 runs on 5 hits. Donaldson, Encarnacion, and Saunders for the Blue Jays.
Time to figure him out. All these guys, this is their 5th time facing Musgrove now.
That's going to be popped down the right side and into the seats out of play.
He threw 4 1/3 innings down in Houston and was dealing 8 strikeouts. So each one of the players got to see him a couple of times. This is 3rd time through the lineup tonight. It's a guy who worked out hard in the offseason to get in good shape. so he can throw like this and throw deep into the game. He's lost 30 pounds in the last year. Did a lot of running on the beaches. Did a lot of the Gus Heffling workouts, if you remember him, to keep himself into shape. And I'll tell you what, he's got a pitcher's body now, doesn't he?
Donaldson fouls that one into the seats. He sure does have a pitcher's body. 6'5", long arms, high legs, and got a lot of leverage going.
He's listed at 230, and I said, that's after the 30 pounds that he lost in the last year? And I said, yeah, he was 260. Long and lean now.
No swing, according to Doug Eddings. He's been consistent on not calling that check swing a strike. You mentioned Gus Heffling. That's a name out of the past. Steve Carlton's the one that brought it to the forefront while he was in Philadelphia. He was a big proponent of that very strenuous workout. Donaldson shoots it down the right field line. He's headed around first, going to second. Springer digs it out, throws it back in. Donaldson crossing up the ship. It's a leadoff double.
The Blue Jays were struggling to score some runs down in Houston, and it was Josh Donaldson who went the other way with a couple of home runs last week when they played him. And he's going to lead off the bottom of the 6th inning by going the other way for a double. How about that, how he waits on that ball a long time. Inside out swing. Keeps it fair by a mile, and a good start for the Blue Jays. Hit those 2 home runs off Colin McHugh to right field.
So now Edwin Encarnacion, he doubled to the wall in right center. That came in the first.
Hasn't come up against that breaking ball tonight against Joe Musgrove. The double that he hit was on a fastball that was away. Every breaking ball he has seen tonight, though, he swung through. Lots of room on the right side if he wants it. It's an easy RBI. Hit a ground ball to the second baseman where he'd be standing.
0-2. That time he went around. Eddings rings up Encarnacion for the swing. 1 away. Drive of the Game is brought to you by the all-new Civic, the 2016 North American Car of the Year.
Last time he came to the plate, that was in the 4th inning. He was sitting on 19 home runs, and Michael Saunders is going to get over that and into a new plateau. Home run number 20. Just over the wall in left field, circles the bases with tonight's drive of the game. Congratulations to Michael Saunders. Now get to 21.
He's a 20 home run hitter. He hit 2 home runs against Seattle on July 23rd, and tonight he hit the first home run since those 2 homers. He hit it to the opposite field. It's always a good sign when you see a hitter getting back to an opposite field swing. Means he's staying on the ball, waiting a little bit longer.
We have seen teams this year change tactics against Michael Saunders. Early in the year, we saw him pounding him inside, and best way to get teams from pounding you inside to going back out over the plate. Hit a couple of balls fair down the right field line. He did that, and now the teams have been really trying to go soft stuff away against him.
Fights that one off and fouls it over the Blue Jays dugout.
That looked like it might have been a changeup that stayed over the inside part of the plate. Soft stuff away, meaning curveballs and changeups and slower stuff away and you play them in the pool, and you're hoping that he goes out there and rolls over on that and pulls the ball on the ground to the right side of the infield.
Outside. Joe Musgrove making his second big league start. Made his major league debut against the Blue Jays, pitching in relief. Off speed pitch, and Saunders strikes out. That's 5 strikeouts for Musgrove, 2 of them back-to-back here in the 6th.
Soft stuff away once again. He tried that changeup away a couple of times, and you see the grip? Almost like a palm ball, where he stuffs that ball back in his hand and then throw it as hard as you can.
A couple of right-handers listening up for the Blue Jays. Joaquin Benoit on the left, Joe Biagini on the right. Troy Tulowitzki 0 for 2 so far. Musgrove has 3 good pitches. Good fastball, very good breaking ball, and a nice changeup.
And good command with all of them. Fastball, he can throw it inside or outside. He'll pick on certain batters that he's going to throw that curveball to. That time that was a changeup.
Tulowitzki's sitting on 19 home runs. He's driven in 58 for the season. One hopper to the shortstop, Correa. The Blue Jays are done in the bottom of the 6th. We'll head to the 7th. 5-2 Astros. Second baseman, one just starting out, the other an all-star and a MVP candidate, Devin Travis. You see where they stand in second base average in the American League with a minimum of 250 plate appearances. Altuve is first at 365, Travis at 306. And then Dustin Pedroia and Robinson Cano, a couple of very good offensive players. Second base has got some good talent right now in the American League.
They used to set the standards, Pedroia and Cano, offensively in the American League. It's become an offensive position lately. A lot of good hitters. The guy standing at the plate has been in the big leagues 6 years. This is his 6th year. That last hit, his 995th hit already in his young career.
Of course, with Ichiro just reaching 3,000 hits for his career, Altuve projects to be maybe the next 3,000 hit player. If he continues on this pace, he will get close to that benchmark in his 36-year season.
He will set the record soon, too, for the fastest Astro to get to 1,000 hits. Right now, Cesar Cedeno has that record. He's on pace. He's about 100 games before Cedeno. What a talent.
Altuve was passing along information to Evan Gattis about Ryan Tepera. He is a very talented player, and he's free to give information to his teammates, and he's had an impact on Devin Travis already. Travis has watched him closely. Correa gets jammed and taps it back to the mound. Tepera throws to first. 2 away. This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of Rogers Blue Jays Baseball Partnership and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of Rogers Blue Jays Baseball Partnership. We are in the top of the 7th. Houston has a 5-2 lead over the Blue Jays. Marwin Gonzalez, the left fielder, is 0 for 3. Gonzalez is the super utility player for the Astros. He plays all over the diamond. Switch hitter, versatile guy. He can really help you all over the place. He hits this one to Travis. Good inning for Ryan Tepera. 3 ground ball outs. The Blue Jays will have to get things going offensively against Joe Musgrove.
Fans, get your kids back ready for school with 5 great high-five deals from Rogers, including offers on phones, tablets, data, and more on select 2-year share everything plans. Hurry into a Rogers store today. And guys, some interesting news coming out of Trenton tonight, where the Trenton Thunder are playing the New Hampshire Fisher Cats, and Blue Jays prospect Connor Green, 6 no-hit innings so far in the game.
Connor Green, one of the top prospects that Blue Jays have, and they're starting to gather some pretty good talent at Double-A New Hampshire. Reese McGuire, the young catcher. The outfielder that they acquired from Pittsburgh has only played in 1 game.
It's on the disabled list. Rodriguez looked like there might be a hole there. They've got some prospects there now.
Russell Martin waits on the breaking ball and taps it back to the mound. 1 away. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. Longoria homered early in the game, first inning off CC Sabathia, his 26th home run of the season. 2 RBIs tonight. He's driven in both runs against New York. Justin Smoke takes ball 1 from Joe Musgrove. Pat Neshek, right-hander, starting to loosen up for Houston. Musgrove has been in control tonight.
Last time out against a very good Texas team. Very good offensive Texas team. 7 innings. He gave up 5 hits and a run. Showing that poise and command and control again here tonight against the Blue Jays.
Fly ball down the right side. This ball is a foul ball. Just foul down into the right field corner. Not much room down there as that foul line disappears, as that wall with the seats comes right into the apex at the end of that foul line.
Oh, so close down the right field lines. Justin Smoke got to that high cutter one more time. Is this ball down the line? I wonder if that fan would have let that ball go if that would have stayed fair. Reached out over at the playing field and touched it.
Doug Eddings, the first base umpire, made the call. 2-2. Smoke back into the batter's box. And he strikes out. Another strikeout for Musgrove. That's 6 in this ball game. Musgrove came into this game doing something that hasn't happened very often. Since 1913, there have only been 4 players who have started their career first 2 games with 1 or more relief appearance and racked up 14 strikeouts. The last to do that before Musgrove, Jack Morris, did it in 1977 when he made his first 2 appearances. Had 14 strikeouts in his first 2 games, tied by Joe Musgrove. This is his 3rd big league game. He's got 20 strikeouts now.
Think of all the great pitchers that the Astros have developed over the years, and he was the first one in their history to have 6 strikeouts, allowing no walks in his first career start. That last start against Texas. And they've had some good ones.
Melvin Upton Jr. 0 for 2 with a strikeout. One of the 6 strikeouts recorded by Musgrove. Breaking ball catches the inside corner. Not sure if Musgrove wanted it there, but he gets the strikeout. 2 more strikeouts in the 7th. He's had a good breaking ball all night long. This one catches the inside corner, and Upton is the 7th strikeout victim for Musgrove.
Sportsnet. Presented by Honda. A lot has changed in 40 years, but one thing hasn't. Honda, proud fan since 1977. Official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
A.J. Hinch talking to his young starter, Joe Musgrove. Musgrove has been outstanding. 2 runs on 6 hits through 7 innings and 7 strikeouts. Ryan Tepera in his 3rd inning of relief. He came into the ball game with 2 outs in the 6th. Had a good inning in the 7th.
He's made it look easy. He has thrown an inning and a 3rd with a walk, and Ryan's only thrown 14 pitches coming into this inning.
Ground ball. Tulowitzki gets a big hop, does a 360 and makes a bad throw. Evan Gattis hustling down the line. Tulowitzki doesn't make many throwing errors, and he got spun around, and when he did, the throw was off the line at first.
Had a little bit more time. Catches it. I thought he could have taken one more step. Sets his sights on Justin Smoak and would have thrown him out. It was Evan Gattis running, but the throw is high, and Gattis beats it out. They call that an infield hit.
Infield hit for Gattis, his 3rd hit of the night. So Gattis is aboard. Tyler White has struck out 3 times tonight, so he is going to be pinch hit for it. This is Tony Kemp. Kemp started game 2 of yesterday's doubleheader in Minnesota, went 2 for 5, and he's played in 5 games. This is his 6th game. He's made 3 starts since being recalled from AAA on Sunday. Blue Jays looking for the bunt. Kemp squares and pops it in the air. Tepera gets there in foul ground. The pitcher makes the catch. Kemp pops out. Failed sacrifice bunt attempt.
You had to figure something like that was up, because they've also got a backup first baseman on the bench named A.J. Reed, who's a right-handed hitter. Normally you would see him pinch hitting for the right-handed hitting first baseman White, but Kemp, who's a slasher, you knew he was bunting, so Tepera did the right thing. He threw a high fastball on that first pitch. Tough to get that ball down. He pops him up. Good piece of pitching right there to get an important out.
The rookie Teoscar Hernandez homered his last time up, his first big league hit, his first big league homer. This is his first big league game. He has walked, homered, scored a pair, and driven in 1. Pretty good debut. Travis will glove it, fire to first, not in time. Ball was a low throw. That should be another hit for Hernandez.
Yeah, with his speed, everybody knows it, that you've got to be perfect in everything that you do. Travis has to go a long way because he was getting close to the bag just in case there was a double play. Look where he starts and the ground that he covers, and he knows after spinning around he's got to throw a strike. It bounces. Smokey can't come up with it, and Ryan Tepera deserved better. A lot of ground balls, but he's not going to be able to finish this inning.
Jason Castro is the scheduled batter. Ryan Tepera will turn things over to Brett Cecil. Brett Cecil last pitched on Tuesday against the Tampa Bay Rays. He worked a very good inning in the ninth, retired the top third of the Rays lineup in order. So he is on with 1 out and 2 aboard here in the 8th.
And he will get the left-hander, Jason Castro. John Gibbons wants to stop this right here. A couple of infield hits by the Astros in the 8th inning. So he's going to bring in his only lefty out of the pen.
Castro goes after the first pitch. Ryan Tepera actually deserved a better fate this inning. Both base hits were ground balls that could have been made. Tulowitzki had to extend behind the bag at second, threw wide at first, and then Devin Travis made a wide throw and a low throw in the dirt. Both were ruled infield hits. Strike 2 to Castro.
Lots of ground balls. That ball was, his fastball was darting tonight, really surprising the Astro hitters. His career high in innings pitched 2, and he came oh so close tonight.
Castro called out. He's not happy with the home plate umpire, and he let him know. Big strikeout for Cecil, 2 down in the inning.
He's only hitting 179 against lefties this year. That's why John Gibbons brought him in here. So feed him a steady diet of breaking balls, and you're going to get yourself a strikeout. Castro thought that ball was inside.
Back to the leadoff man, top of the order, George Springer. He goes around on the first pitch. Springer's been on base 3 times. You mentioned the Blue Jays handling down in the 4-game series at Minute Maid Park. He did not score a run in 15 at bats.
Didn't get many hits either.
2 for 15 in that series. Gaddis at second. Hernandez at first. Both of them have been on base 3 times tonight. Now it's 2-1. Houston with 5 runs on 10 hits. Blue Jays just 2 runs on 6 hits. Each club has hit a home run. Michael Saunders homered in the 4th for his 20th home run of the season. First time he's reached 20 home runs. And Teoscar Hernandez hit a home run in his first big league game. Jose Altuve with a 2-run double. Carlos Correa a 2-run single. Another sellout crowd here at Rogers Center tonight. What a block by Martin. That nearly hit Springer in the foot. Russell was able to block the ball and keep the runners.
He recognizes it's a breaking ball, and he doesn't even move. Spike that curveball. Good job by Russell keeping that one in front of him. 3-2 now. The runners are going to get a head start on this pitch.
Alex Bregman, the third baseman, is on deck if Springer can keep the inning going. Way outside, ball 4. That'll load the bases.
This Blue Jays Rogers 4K broadcast is powered by the Samsung 4K SU HD TV.
46,330 here at Rogers Center for the first of 3 against Houston. Another sellout crowd. Blue Jays continue to lead the American League in attendance. 2 outs. Alex Bregman takes the first pitch strike. He's 2 for 4 tonight. Bregman's got his average up to 167. Excuse me, 176. When we saw him, he had just 1 hit.
Yeah, 1 for 33. Started his big league career. Looks a little bit more compact now, doesn't he? When he was down there in Houston, looked like he was pulling the ball, trying to pull it, coming off of it. Looks a little bit more compact, a little bit more dangerous.
Bregman is just 22 years old. Pat mentioned he was drafted last June 2015.
He is getting his first look at Brett Cecil.
Bregman grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He went to LSU to play college baseball. 3 years at LSU when he was drafted. He was All-American, Gold Glove Award winner, and Golden Spikes finalist as the best college player in the country. 0-2. Another good block by Martin. This one saves a run.
You know, Brett's been pitching much better lately because of his curveball. His curveball's been much better. He's been able to drop it in there to both lefties and righties. Tonight he's struggling with it just a little bit. It's the 3rd time that he has thrown that breaking ball. Bounced in front of Russell Martin, and Russell's been fighting it to keep it in front of him.
Scott Feldman loosening up quickly for the Blue Jays. Fly ball. Michael Saunders, the right fielder, coming in. He makes the catch, and the Astros leave the bases loaded. We'll go to the bottom of the 8th. Houston has a 5-2 lead. Now time for a Blue Jays Central update. Here's Jamie Campbell and Greg Zahn in the Samsung broadcast studio. Early 94 pitches over 7 innings. He allowed 6 hits, 2 earned runs, walked only 1, and struck out 7. He now has 21 strikeouts in his first 3 big league games.
2 of them starts. This looks like his last start. 7 innings, just 2 earned runs, a walk, and 5 punch-outs. He will give way to Pat Neshek for the 4th time. Neshek comes into the ball game. He's been a nice bridge to the back end of that bullpen. A whip under 1. Look at what right-handers have done. Nothing. 131 against Neshek. He's very tough.
Marwin Gonzalez, the starting left fielder, moves to first base, and Tony Kemp pinch hit for the first baseman, Tyler White. He is now in the game in left field. This is the 20th career appearance for Neshek against the Blue Jays. He's held them to a 171 batting average.
You can see why he was an all-star. Set-up reliever. Funky delivery, nasty. Ball moves all over the place. And he's got that deceptive delivery, but throws a ton of strikes. You would think with that type of delivery, he'd be spraying the ball all over the place.
It's really deceptive because he looks like he's going to throw submarine. And then he comes 3/4. Very unusual delivery. Changeup. One down here in the bottom of the 8th.
How about that? That was 66 miles an hour. Watch the deception. Straight in, and gets up and then floats that ball in there, that changeup, to pick up the strikeout.
That's 3 straight strikeouts by the Astros pitchers. Musgrove struck out Smokin' Upton to end the 7th, and now Neshek gets Siciliani here to start the 8th. Devin Travis extended his hit streak in the 3rd inning with a single to right. He's now hit in 8 straight games. 1 for 3 tonight. The Astros have retired 7 straight Blue Jays, 5 on strikeouts. Roberto Osuna throwing. Blue Jays had an off day yesterday. Just getting some throwing in.
Well, just in case Blue Jays are able to score 4 runs, got to have your closer ready. So he is just soft tossing right now, just lobbing the ball just in case. Blue Jays will have Scott Feldman to pitch the top of the 9th.
Feldman was acquired from the Astros on August 1st while the Blue Jays were in Houston. And he appeared in that game and took the loss in that 14-inning game.
Wasn't supposed to pitch in that game. Pitched out of necessity.
Travis fights it off. Neshek gives you a wide variety of velocities. You mentioned that 66-mile-an-hour pitch to strike out Siciliani. That last pitch was 90.
Drop the slider on you, or a changeup. Tough to pick the ball up from this guy. He's only given up 11 hits all year to a right-handed batter.
Neshek began his career with the Minnesota Twins in 2006. Spent 3 seasons with the Twins and then didn't appear again in the majors until 2010. Came back with Minnesota. Was injured, missed the entire 9 season. Spent some time in San Diego, Oakland, St. Louis, and now with Houston. This is his 3rd season with Houston.
Devin making it tough on him. Fouling off some tough pitches.
Devin's made it tough on a lot of pitchers lately. Fouls off another pitch. Get that whole assortment of pitches away. He can handle that pitch away.
Yeah, and that's what's making it tough for Neshek. He's fouling off all those tough pitches. This pitch is going to be number 9 to Devin Travis in this at-bat.
Hits this one to right. Springer was there and makes a running catch. 2 away. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. Brendan Guyer picked up by the Indians from Tampa Bay, and he's a very useful extra man. Guy can do a lot of things. Two away. Josh Donaldson doubled down the right field line his last time up. Donaldson and Neshek were teammates for a couple of years in Oakland.
Playoff teams, weren't they? When they were together in Oakland?
Yep. Neshek, he's got some postseason experience. Pitched in the postseason with Minnesota, Oakland, St. Louis, and Houston. They were together in Oakland 2012 and 13. Oakland went to the ALDS in 12.
That's why they went out and got him. They felt they had a young team with some young starters. They wanted some veterans at the back end of that bullpen to make sure that if they were handed a lead, that it was going to stay a lead. So they went out and signed him and Gregerson, Tony Sipp, who has spent some time with Cleveland. Blue Jays making him work.
Michael Feliz, the big right-hander. He was the winning pitcher in that 14-inning game in Houston. A 2-1 win for the Astros in the first game of the 4-game series. Donaldson stays alive. Two and two, 2 outs. Bottom of the 8th inning.
Very animated on that mound right there. Neshek wanted that call. You can see from pitch tracker that slider just slid right off the plate. Donaldson showing a lot of patience.
Blue Jays need base runners. They're down by 3. That's popped up over near the coach's box. Gonzalez gets there and makes the catch. 3 up, 3 down. Neshek with a good inning in the 8th. Will go to the 9th. Houston has the 5-2 lead. Number 4 tonight, batting .312 for the season. the home run number 26. Ortiz has 90 RBIs now in this his final season.
And I thought I saw a note the other day that he's got the most most extra base hits for a 40-year-old.
Yep.
And however how long. I mean, he's just putting together an MVP type of season also.
An amazing season for David Ortiz. This is Scott Feldman. You see his numbers between Houston and Toronto. 31st appearance. It's 5-2 Houston in the ninth.
Scott pitched on Tuesday against Tampa Bay. He threw an inning and he gave up 4 runs and 6 hits. It was only the 7th inning. He came back into the dugout and said, I want another inning. I don't want to end it like that. And the Blue Jays needed an inning, another inning out of their bullpen. That was the game they ended up losing 9-2. So he sucked up another inning. He asked John Gibbons to go back out there and had a great 8th inning. 1-2-3 with a couple of strikeouts.
So he finished on a positive note. Altuve hits it to short. Tulowitzki throws him out. 1 away.
Home Hardware and Building Center locations. Proud partners of the Toronto Blue Jays. Homeowners helping homeowners with expert advice.
Beautiful night here as it's cooled off now. I want to say hello to Gail Dallas of Smithville, Ontario, who watches every single game. She's got a little setup at her house where she sits in there and watches all the games. Gail, great to have you with us every night. This is Carlos Correa taking a first pitch strike. Correa, boy, he got a big hit early in this ball game. A 2-run single in the 3rd with 2 outs. Scored the first 2 runs of the game. Blue Jays got a run in the bottom half. But then Altuve with a 2-run double in the 5th. Got the runs right back.
I think they're going to be doing that for a long time together, those two. Hitting 3 and 4 in this lineup. This guy's what, 21?
Yeah, just getting started. Altuve's 26. You mentioned he started at 19. Altuve did, came to the big league, so he's got the experience. Correa's got a lot of talent. Altuve's as good a hitter as there is in the game today. Feldman takes the comeback and fires to first. He gets Altuve and Correa. Feldman was the pitcher in that 14-inning game that gave up the hits to Altuve and Correa in the bottom of the 14th. Correa hit a double to the wall that chased Altuve home from first. That was the decisive run in that game.
He had just put on a Blue Jays uniform that day and had pitched the night before and was told before, hey, you're not going to pitch today. You need some time off. And out of necessity, he had to pitch. It was the 14th inning. He was the last man standing in that bullpen. And unfortunately, his former team got him. 2 batters into that 14th inning.
2 outs. Well, when Gonzalez bunts it up the first baseline, Feldman tries to scoop it to first and couldn't make the play. Do or die play for Feldman. It was a perfect bunt by Gonzalez. His first hit of the night.
One more time, bringing up the line. High leg kick. Feldman's going to scoop it, but it gets stuck in his hand just for a little bit, and his fingers push it off target. And that should be an infield hit.
11 hits now for the Astros. Evan Gattis has 3 of those hits, including a pair of doubles. Well, Harris is standing by ready in their bullpen. And they have gone back and forth with closers. Harris is 11 for 14. Gregerson 14 for 19. But Gregerson just came back off the disabled list. Ken Giles has been
Not here.
in the closer's role. He's on the paternity list. There goes the runner, and it's fouled out of play.
Yeah, he didn't even make the trip to Toronto. Their closer now, Ken Giles. So it looks like they're going to go with Will Harris tonight.
Two and one to Evan Gattis. 2 outs. Marwin Gonzalez is the runner at first. Looks like he's going to run. Nope. He was anxious. Thought about it.
Yeah, Feldman held it just for a little bit longer, and he stumbled a little bit over at first base. 3 and 1. He might be going now. Watch him. He's thinking about it. He holds it just a little bit longer. Teams will give guys the option to run 3-1.
Strike 2. He'll be running now. Full count with 2 outs. Got Feldman, the third relief pitcher to work tonight. Francisco Liriano started. He's charged with 5 runs on 8 hits over 5 2/3.
He was antsy again over there at first base.
Yeah, it was interesting. He got off so far, he stopped. He was out in no man's land before Veltman had ever made a move toward the plate.
Wonder if they put a pickoff play on right here. Watch him. He's trying to time him up.
Now he goes, and Gattis bounces it towards short. Donaldson unloads in a hurry, not in time. Evan Gattis with his 4th hit of the game. His second 4-hit game of the season.
His second infield hit in as many at bats. Big guy can get down that line. He tied a career high in yesterday's game in RBIs with 4, and tonight he gets 4 hits. Clearly beats that throw. Man down the line sniffing that 4th hit, and he gets it.
He had a 4-hit game on the 3rd of June against Oakland in Houston. He was 4 for 5 in that game, hit a home run and drove in 4. 2 doubles, 2 singles in 5 at bats.
He's thinking about that hit. Look at that. Beats it out.
Tony Kemp entered the game as a pinch hitter in the 8th inning and popped out trying to bunt. Hits again tonight. Houston has had double-digit hits in 4 straight and 5 of their last 6.
Told you about their game on Wednesday. It was early in that game. It was the 3rd inning. They were already down 5-0 when the rains came. Washed that game out. It was almost like a do-over for them. They came back yesterday, hit the cover off the ball against Minnesota.
19 hits in game 1, 16 hits in game 2. They scored 25 runs. Two and 1 to Tony Kemp. That's going to be fouled down the right side.
That might be another broken bat for Scott Feldman. Yeah, it is. He got Gattis. That ended up being an infield hit. He got Kemp that time. A couple more infield hits for the Astros this inning.
2 balls and 2 strikes. We're in the top of the 9th. Houston has a 5-2 lead. Bounced, and Russell's done a heck of a job of blocking those breaking balls tonight. Did it a couple of times with Brett Cecil into the game. He's done it a couple of times with Feldman.
Had to do it a few times with Liriano as he's trying to get that breaking ball down and into some of those right-handers.
Three and two outs. So runners will be off on the pitch. There they go. All 4. Well, Feldman, after 2 quick outs, gives up a bunt base hit, an infield hit, and now walks Kemp to load the bases.
There's nothing you can do if you're John Gibbons. Can't go to the bullpen. You got to find your way out of this one.
Teoscar Hernandez in his first big league game is 2 for 3. His first hit was a home run. He had an infield hit his last time up. He makes it look easy.
Yeah. Bring him up? No, we'll just put him right out in center field. And he has delivered. He's been on base 3 times. He scored a couple of runs. They've had some nice young players come through the system the last couple of years.
Hernandez is the 10th rookie on this roster. He started the season at AA Corpus Christi. They moved him up to AAA Fresno. At the same time, they moved Alex Bregman from AA to AAA, and they moved Hernandez. They moved them both together. Two and 1. This all started with 2 outs and nobody on. Marwin Gonzalez dropped the beauty, a bunt up the first baseline. Ground ball. Devin Travis will flip to Tulowitzki, and that'll end the inning. Feldman gets out of it. The Astros leave the bases loaded. The Blue Jays will bat in the bottom of the 9th. They're down by 3. Edwin Encarnacion, Michael Sanders, Troy Tulowitzki will face Will Harris when we come back.
Fans, a reminder, our Rio 2016 Olympic Games coverage continues on Sportsnet. You can tune in tomorrow at 8:20 a.m. Eastern, 5:20 a.m. Pacific. And guys, another successful day for Canada in the pool. The Canadian women are doing a fantastic job, and they're racking up the medals.
Been a terrific Olympics for the Canadians so far. Of course, the youngster Penny Golesiak has won 4 medals, including a gold medal, and what a great game she's having. 16 years old from East Shore. Congratulations to all the Canadian Olympians. Will Harris into the game, his 48th appearance, trying to close things out.
Last time the Blue Jays saw him, he gave up a home run to Russell Martin and lost his closer's job right after that. But Ken Giles, who was then closing for him, is not here this weekend. Paternity leave, so Will Harris takes back over the closer's role in this save situation.
2-0. Edwin Encarnacion 1 for 3. He doubled in his first at bat. It'll be Encarnacion, Saunders, and Tulowitzki. Not exactly the way you want to start a save situation.
Nope. You want to jump ahead. The guy at the plate can't hurt you. Even if it's a home run, you're still leading. You don't want to be walking guys. He threw a scoreless 8th inning on Tuesday. That was also his 17th hole. Remember, he was a setup guy earlier this year. Became the closer, lost that. Setup guy again, now again out of necessity. Without their closer here, he's asked to close this one off.
Foul ball. Bounced foul by Encarnacion. It's now full count.
Rally cap time.
46,330 here on a Friday night. Should be sold out for the rest of the weekend. Swing and a drive. Stay fair. Ball number 300.
Milestone home runs tonight by the Blue Jays. Michael Saunders with his career high 20th, and now Edwin with his career 300th. Congratulations to Double E.
Edwin becomes the 11th Dominican-born player to hit 300 or more home runs in the big leagues. His 32nd home run of the season is a no-doubter into the second deck.
He's had some good swings tonight. He just
all night long.
Yeah, missed a couple from Joe Musgrove, and then finally got the 3-2 pitch, and Harris didn't want to walk him. So he threw him one of those cut fastballs right down the middle, and he hit a laser out of here.
Milestone home run for Edwin Encarnacion.
One more time. We've seen this before. There's the cutter. Here's that pretty powerful swing. Get that ball back for him.
Jose Bautista hit his 300th home run against the Astros down at Minute Maid Park.
And Edwin follows suit with that second deck home run. It's lit a fire under the fans here in the ninth.
2-1. That fan has the souvenir and the security making sure that Edwin gets that souvenir back. Field foul. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Nobody out. Troy Tulowitzki is next. Edwin doubled in the first and homered here in the ninth. He's 2 for 4. Troy Tulowitzki will be next. Michael Felice, throwing earlier in the game, has gotten back up.
And getting loose quickly.
Full count. Fly ball to left. Tony Kemp, the left fielder, waits on it. One down. One away now for a preview of what's coming up on Sportsnet Central. Here's Eric Thomas and Ivanka Osman. Thank you, Eric. That's all coming up right after this game. Lots of news from the Olympics, lots of news in the baseball world, so make sure you check it out. Troy Tulowitzki takes a first pitch strike. Tulo is 0 for 3. Right back to the mound. Harris flips to first. 2 away.
Well, you hope that you get that tying run to the plate. When you're down by 3 runs in the 9th inning, you just give me a chance. Got to get one more guy on and bring that tying run to the plate.
2 outs. Russell Martin, as Pat mentioned, homered off Harris down in Houston. It was a 9th inning home run in a 1-0 game. That tied it up.
That was Russell's last home run. Number 8 on the season. So he starts him off with a curveball.
Off the end of the bat. Gonzalez flips to first, and that's the ball game. Houston wins the opener of this game 5-3. Joe Musgrove is the winner. Harris picks up the save. Altuve and Correa again. Together they combine to drive in 4. Encarnacion with a big home run.
They come into this game a very hot team offensively, and they keep it up in game number 1. They win by 2, but they pound out 12 hits and win the first game here. You're right, Edwin. Congratulations once again on that milestone home run. Blue Jays have to regroup. Quick turnaround for tomorrow's game.
Collin McHugh will go to the mound for Houston and be opposed by Aaron Sanchez. That's tomorrow afternoon. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. Stay tuned. Here's Sportsnet Central. Eric and Ivanka.